I believe we are live, guys. Fantastic. If you're with us on live, give us a hashtag live. If you're with us on replay, give us a hashtag replay. You know the drill by now. I'm joined by the productivity expert himself, Carl Pate. Thank you very much for coming on board, Carl. It's great to have you.
Yeah, great to have you. Great to be on here as well.
Fantastic. Good stuff. Good stuff. So, guys, what we're going to be covering today, I'm sure Carl's going to give us a little rundown while I tag a few people in this who've requested to join. While I tag a few people in, Carl, would you be able to give us a little intro on who you are, what you do, and what the mission of today is as well? That'd be great.
Of course, yeah. So I am in my second career. So I spent the first 27 years of my career in finance, so in senior finance roles in a corporate environment. The most significant element of that being that back in 2000, we did a big management buyout. It was the business that we were in. The business had lost about 165 million quid in the 5 years before we bought it, 65 in the year that we bought it. And we turned it around in 3 years and then sold it for multiple 8 figures 12 years after we originally bought it.
Yeah.
And so that's inside of there. There's all sorts of stuff that you need to do, but one of the major things that made all the difference was taking action. And it was all about getting stuff done at the right time, as quick as you possibly could, so that you could actually have a business that had obviously had its challenges. And so how do we make that happen? So that's what I went through there. I then stayed on with that business when it sold for 4 years, which is 4 years longer than I should have done. And then I eventually got to the point where I was just hating it and I needed to get out, and I got out and did my own thing. So I've been working on my own stuff for a while in my spare time, in the mornings and evenings and weekends, creating my software, Daily Life Tracker, which is all about life management, and then decided to just go full time. And so I set up a business called Productivity Powerhouse and set off doing all sorts of things. So I probably got the first 18 months all mixed up and not quite in the right order of things. So doing too many courses, creating too many things, just not really getting myself focused, because I've been used to being in a corporate environment, and then coming out into becoming an entrepreneur was a big deal. So then inside of that, I then wrote my book, Making Shit Happen.
Fantastic.
and created my software, created courses, and then more recently set up a business with my business partner, Paul Hornsey-Pennell, which is all about helping people to become entrepreneurs and do the thing that I did. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. If you've got any questions, just shout them out, please. I'm more than happy to go into any detail that you want. But the thing for today, I think, is working on productivity, which is my thing. It's the thing I've been studying for 30 years, working on in practice inside of the old business, in practice now as well, of course, because it's something that you can do every single day. And so that's my thing now, is to get on. So when Paul and I, even in my new business, I'm the IQ side of things, the systems, the business, the consistency, and all of those things that actually get you moving, where Paul is the EQ side of things, and the creativity and the entrepreneurialism.
Okay, fantastic. Awesome. Thanks for the little intro there. Guys, if you've got any questions for Carl at any stage during this, drop them in the chat. We will cover a little Q&A at the end for any questions. But today Carl will just give us a little example. What are we going to cover today, Carl? What is the mission of today and what we want the guys to take away from today?
So the key things I think we're going to cover today are going to go through the sort of big three, really.
Yes.
So the main 3 things to help with your productivity, because there's a whole host of things that we could talk about if we've got hours and hours and hours. But in the time frame that that we've got today, I think if we look at the big 3, then that's going to give hopefully give some value to everybody that's on.
Fantastic. Also, further out of do, let's dive into this then. What are the 3 biggest things that we can do? I'm sure we'll do one at a time. What are the 3 biggest things that these guys can install to optimize their productivity and elevate themselves?
I think the first one is probably going to be more of a conversation, because I think in terms of the detail, it's your end of the scale.
Okay.
I think the fact that people are in here in your group, this is a massive advantage to them when you're looking at productivity, because the biggest thing is getting your energy sorted out. So the biggest bang for your buck by far is getting your energy levels sorted out.
Yeah.
Without that, then all of the other strategies, they're muted.
Gotcha.
So you will have some great strategies, and we'll talk about some of them today. But without the energy levels and without being there all the time and being absolutely present, then it doesn't help and it
Gotcha.
doesn't help. It doesn't work as well as it could do, should we say? And so having this, getting focused on your energy levels is so important, because that then lasts from the moment you get up until the moment you go to bed. Everything else is like works when it works, but for that, it's there all the time for you.
I think it's a very good point you make here about the whole energy and protecting your biology and understanding where we want to be on your energy balance equation to optimize performance. So for a lot of the guys who are watching right now, they're wanting to recomp, elicit fat off their frame, and in doing so, they need to be positioned in the calorie deficit. But I think with what you're saying here, and it supports what we do, is we've got to create a slight calorie deficit, if anything, just left of center in your maintenance, to heighten the amount of energy that we need to operate at peak performance. I think that's what you're saying, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I use an acronym that sort of to look at the different elements of it, which I'm sure is a lot of the stuff that you talk about in much more detail than I do, which is FIRED. So I talk about getting fired up. So it's food, intermittent fasting, resistance training, exercise, which is more about aerobic stuff, and then downtime and getting your sleep right, which is one that I missed really for many years because I was focused on not having much sleep.
I think it's a key point that we bring in, Carl. See what you think to this, is that with a lot of our guys, entrepreneurs, busy professional men, it's the macro profile of how we gear up their diet and nutrition as well to optimize performance. Now, what we typically do with our entrepreneurs, busy professionals who are at the get-go from 9 a.m. straight away, we want to elevate their cognitive function as much as possible, as well as their energy balance. And what we do here is we bring a sort of high fat profile to aid that cognitive function, to get that firing. What we've found is with a lot of guys who come in sort of high carb earlier on in the day, they feel quite sluggish and slow. And bringing that sort of higher fat gets that cognitive function, get everything fired, the omega-3s, and just gets it all a little bit more slick. I guess that comes hand in hand with the energy profile that you're talking about.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the sort of sugar highs and those sort of highs and lows and the crashes, and if you've got that going on throughout your day, then you're always going to suffer somewhat throughout certainly towards certain elements of the day as well. It isn't necessarily the end of the day. There's going to be certain times of the day when you start to peter off a little bit.
I think that's absolutely key, and it's something that's not really widely looked at is blood glucose management, insulin sensitivity, seeing the spike and managing that moving forward. That's what we do within our mastermind. I'm sure Carl also will appreciate this, is that we'll have a little tracker and we'll see exactly what your fasted reading is each morning, and if it's elevated, we know we need to change your macro profile to have maybe a more sort of fat-led based diet to control these insulin movements, which is so key. I think that's such a valuable point there to understand how to manage your blood glucose management in relation to your performance and productivity. I think 100% they're very much connected, and you're leaving a stone unturned if you're not looking at that. So I think that's a big point. Go on. Sorry.
I think the way that you track things when we spoke the other day just sounds absolutely amazing. One of the 5 pillars in my book is tracking. My software is called Daily Life Tracker. I'm all about measuring and monitoring, doing these things and working with the stats, which I know is your deal. And I'm just so impressed with the level of detail that you guys go into. And I think that is absolutely critical to making the move happen. And it's and therefore to all the productivity stuff that you'll get out of the back end of it.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely spot on here. Like, without data, without constant variables, how are we supposed to be productivity? We can't manage what we don't measure, I assume. And that's why data is so key in creating controlled variables. I'm sure we'll probably dive into this a little bit more about the systems that you're going to suggest. But I think what we've covered, the first one there, energy, and how we manipulate that, where we need to be from an energy standpoint, and then really look into the finer details of the macro percentages to optimize that as well. I think that's a solid takeaway there to go away with and understand. Fantastic. What would you say the next biggest thing would be to optimize productivity? Number two
is what I call the fastest bang for your buck.
Gotcha.
And that is focus. This idea of multitasking is one of the worst ideas that have been bandied about. Multitasking isn't a great strategy in terms of improving your productivity. Now, of course, we're going to have lots of things that are happening in our lives, But when you're on it, you need to be on it. And it's like this idea of sort of super focus and eliminating everything else. And by doing that,
Yes.
everything moves so much quicker. So much quicker. And it feels a
Yeah.
little counterintuitive at first, because you think, well, if I've got this going and this going and this going, like, you know, all these things happening, but it doesn't work like that, because you're switching time between one task and another takes up your energy. So if you've got 100% of your day and you work on one thing, and obviously that's not going to be that's not going to be what you do, but you know, if you work on one thing, then that takes out all of your energy. When you split that into two, it isn't 50% on each, it's more like 40% on each and 20% in the switch.
So you're saying when it comes to a situation like that, ultimately what that leads to sometimes is procrastination, and actually the output and efficiency is diminished because you're trying to spread yourself too wide.
Because you will spread yourself too wide. Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because
Gotcha.
when you're not focused on that one thing that you need to be doing, and your mind's spread, it reduces your effectiveness considerably.
Appreciate that, 100%. So for someone like you who knows he's got X, Y, and Z, he's got a whole list of tasks he needs to do. Is there a system, an app you use to monitor this and optimize this? Or is it getting this list of activities and putting them into high level importance, medium level importance, low? How would you go about this?
I mean, I do have a system. I looked for a system that I wanted, and we'll come on to the system.
Sure.
Kind of crossing the two boundaries, but that's fine. The three,
Okay.
2 and 3, but that's fine. And let's do that, because the system is important.
Mm-hmm.
I went out and I looked for a system that did the stuff that I wanted it to do.
Sure.
Probably about 15 or 20 years ago. I couldn't find something that did it all, because what I wanted was one system to take care of everything.
Gotcha.
And so I ended up creating it. So I built my own system. I built my software called Daily Life Tracker, and it's all about creating great habits.
Yes.
And then also now, I mean, that was what it was at the time, just that. And now it's all, we've got all sorts of things in there as well. We do diet tracking, body tracking,
Gotcha.
journaling. We
Nice.
do, you know, habit. There's a to-do list and there's all sorts of stuff. But so creating the system, and yeah, I mean, people talk about not having lists, which to me doesn't make sense. Yes. You know, you need to know what you've got to do. Just because you don't have it in a list doesn't mean it doesn't need to be done. It doesn't need to be addressed. Now, that doesn't mean you've got to do everything.
Yeah.
You know, you can outsource things to people.
I think that's one of your main points, isn't it? The outsourcing and distraction management. I think, is this one of your tools within your system?
Yeah. So if we look at the focus, if we go into the focus side, there's probably 4 elements for the moment, at least, that we could talk about inside of focus. And the first one is planning. So that you can plan what it is that you need to be focusing on. And what you need to do is spend 1 hour planning the other 23.
Gotcha.
And the words there are really important, because if I just said spend an hour planning, then you go, shit, another hour doing something else. I haven't got time to do something else. But when you look at it as spend an hour to plan the other 23, then the focus turns to the other 23. And so you can really get your mind on what it is that you need to be doing. Because it's planning, for me, there's 3 types of work, really. There's planned work, planning work, and planned work, planning work, and sorry, it's going to come back to me in a second. But the planned work is the stuff that you think that you should be doing, the stuff that's already on your list. Oh, and unplanned work, of course. Yeah. So the planned stuff's already on your list. That's the stuff that you think you should be doing. The unplanned work you see as a distraction. Yeah. Because, but this is the world we live in. You know, we're living in a dynamic world, so you've got to be able to take care of that. And then the final bit, which is the guilty work, is the planning.
Right. Am I right in saying, Carl, that we are all guilty of when we've got these high level tasks that we need to do, and this unplanned work sort of comes into mind, and it's very low level, it's got low level importance, but it captures our attention and we go along with it because we're not quite ready or have got the guts to go and do the high level stuff that we need to do. Absolutely. Is that quite common?
Absolutely.
And how do you manage that?
Very, very common. It's a bit like, I talk about planning like FedEx.
Got you.
You know, because if you were running a logistics company and you got your guys out on the road, and they're down in London and they're about to make a delivery, and somebody from Edinburgh calls them and says, I need you to make my delivery now. You need to get straight on the road and get up there. No one's going to listen to them, even though they might shout and shout and shout. But if you're in a logistics company, that's never going to work. You're never going to do it. But it's what we do all the time. Because as soon as someone shouts at us with an email that comes through, we get distracted away from that path that we were on, and we go running down this other road and doing something for somebody else. And then all of a sudden, you've lost your flow. You've got to get back into it. Even if you're just picking the phone up, it's going to take you another 11 minutes to get back somewhere near the flow that you were in before you pick the phone up.
Got you.
So you've got to get away from that, and that's part of the distraction management thing that you mentioned before as well.
So for someone who hasn't got your system yet, shall we say, for someone, how would they go about it in managing their productivity with their list of important things to do? Would they categorize it into 3 tiers, like you just said there, or how would they go about it?
I don't necessarily do that. I mean, what I tend to do myself is I'll have a list of everything. So I get everything out of my head. Everything that I need to do is in my system.
Just all on paper.
Well, I have it in a system rather than paper, but it could be paper. Some people love paper because of the tactile nature of it. I prefer a system because I don't want to be redoing things. But once you've got it into a system and you've got it organized and structured in a good way, then you can start going through and saying, right, okay, what are the things that I'm going to focus on today? So this is a great example of something that we can really get focused on. So 3-1-1 planning, I call it.
Okay.
So what are the 3 things that you must get done today?
Okay.
So that's the first thing. So outcomes. And this can be over any period. This could be for the next hour. It could be for the next week. It could be for the next year. But you go, what are the 3 things? And obviously they have there's different connotations to them depending on the time frame that you put to it. But let's talk about the day. So what are the 3 things that you need to do for the day? The 3 outcomes that you need to achieve. That's the first thing. The next one is, right, okay, then now what is the single one? Which if you couldn't do all 3, what would be the most important thing?
Right.
That if you just got that done by the end of the day, you go to bed happy.
Okay.
And then the final one is, what is the very next action that you need to take?
Right.
So 3 outcomes, 1 very focused outcome, and the first action that you need to take in doing that so you can actually make it move.
Right. Got you. Okay, cool. So we're getting clear on the focus elements,
yes,
which is really, and these are things that you can take away and start implementing straight away. It's just coming with a little bit of discipline and really actually devoting it. Would you say is part of time management? You know, I say with our guys with time auditing and time management, actually devote a time where you have 30 minutes to devote to your productivity for the upcoming week, where you lay out everything to a T, you know exactly where you're going to get your tasks in and become systemized.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get everything out of your brain isn't designed to store all the stuff that we got to do today because it's far too complex. You need a system to be able to cope with that. So you get a system, whether it's my system or another system, you know, whatever it is, but get everything out of your head, bring it all out, then start to organize it, and then start to work on how you're actually going to process it through. And some of that stuff is going to be done by other people. So one of the 4 elements of focus is outsourcing. Giving other people things to do so that you can focus on the things that you need to do. Now, that doesn't mean that you are removing all responsibility for it. You're just passing it on to someone else they can work on. You need to have a system then that allows you to keep tapping into that. Not micromanaging, but just tapping in to make sure it's moving along the right way.
Would you say a valuable task to do in relation to the outsourcing element for a lot of these busy professional men, business owners, is figuring out how much an hour of your time is worth? And figuring out how much each task is worth in value and time to you. And then from there, outsourcing associated expertise to come into your corner to
100%. 100%. If you know your worth, then you know whether you should be doing this task or that task. Now, that doesn't mean that, like, you know, if you love gardening, but you can find a chap who will do your garden for £20 an hour and you can make £150 an hour, that you never do your garden because you love doing that. So you can find that inside of your time frame.
Gotcha.
But it shouldn't be something that's in your list of things when you could be actually using that time better on focused productivity around your own core business.
So it's quite relative then in that sense, in that respect, but food for thought there. Fantastic. We've got a lot of questions coming in, by the way. I think we're going to save them to the end after. I don't want to, because I think we're on a roll here. We'll cover them at the end. But a quick one from me is in relation to the focus side of things. Is there a certain amount of time you should devote to a certain task, or until it's finished? Would you keep it quite condensed in the moment, and so it's short, sharp, effective, move on to the next one, or would you just until it's done?
Very much depends. Very much depends. I think there's different elements to this. If it's a big task and you've been really struggling to get going on it, then, I mean, timers are fantastic. Timer, everyone's got a timer on the phone, fantastic tool. Set yourself 15 minutes. If you've not started something and you need to start it, set yourself a 15-minute task and just get rolling on it to get moving. If it's a bigger project, then you might want to set 90 minutes. Because then where you shut everything else out and you just have a 90-minute focus stretch of time. There's also the I never remember the word, the Pomodoro
technique, where it just rings.
25 on, 5 out.
Yeah.
And where you're just getting these amounts of time. Now it might, because if you're writing a book, you're not going to write a book in 90 minutes or in the morning. You've got to create a structured amount of time, or give yourself a chapter or half a chapter. But setting yourself these sort of deadlines is a way of manipulating the way that you can actually, your brain's working whilst it's working on these tasks.
Sure. And one thing, I assume this is all related, because I know a lot of guys in the chat watching right now have fallen into the trap of procrastination. How do you limit procrastination? How do you minimize that moving forward?
I think it's about manipulating the different elements that form procrastination. The procrastination comes from, and there's a great book called The Procrastination Equation by Dr. Piers Steele, and in there he talks about 4 elements of the motivation equation, which is kind of the upside down version. So procrastination is the evil sister of motivation, and those are value, the value that you place on something. The expectation that you have around whether you're going to achieve it, both of those two on the top of the equation from a motivation point of view. And then on the other side of the equation, time lag and distraction.
Gotcha.
And so the greater the value, the more you won't procrastinate, the more you'll be motivated.
Yeah, gotcha.
Equally with expectation, if you expect what you're doing to actually achieve the result that you want to achieve, you're more likely to do it.
Right.
On the other hand, the greater the time lag, the less likely you are to do it, and the greater your propensity for distraction, the less likely you are to do it.
I think I can relate to this. I think, correct me if I'm wrong here. So you're saying with certain tasks that aren't necessarily a guaranteed outcome, and your applied efforts and energy may not actually yield the return or result that you want, that's when procrastination and sort of backing off and putting it off, because you... Am I right saying? Okay, got you.
Yeah. It's a bit like your taxes. Most people will put their taxes off until very late in the day, but at some stage, the value in that, because of the cost if you don't do it, is going to get them to do it finally.
Gotcha.
But the longer but we can manipulate it when we understand the value, expectation, time lag, and distraction. We can manipulate all those things to help to eliminate some of that distraction.
Gotcha.
For example, by creating shorter deadlines for ourselves, smaller goals, shorter deadlines, getting things moving, using your timer. If you've got something to do in 3 minutes, just do it.
Fantastic.
Don't worry about putting it on your list, just do it. If you've got something doing, you want to get moving on, do it 15-minute block, and then the 90-minute block if it's a big project that you want to work.
Gotcha. I think there's tons of value in that, what we've just spoke about, the focus. I think there's loads of things we can take away from that and apply, which is great, and give some understanding of how we can execute that. What's the third biggest one, Carl? What's the third biggest thing that can optimize productivity?
So the third one is we've already touched upon to a degree, which is the system.
Gotcha.
So it's having a system to be able to manage all of this stuff.
Gotcha.
Because without that, you're kind of just doing bits here and bits there. And the biggest thing in this is building your consistency. And you'll know this more than anybody. Building your consistency is the biggest thing. I think in my book, consistency isn't one of my 5 pillars, because consistency goes across everything.
Gotcha.
And I open the book with consistency, and I close the book with consistency.
Gotcha.
Because it's all about that. Consistency, I say it's the secret sauce that you need to spread over everything that you do in order to make progress in the things that you want to make progress in.
Gotcha.
Because everyone, it's about dabbling. Everyone's, dabbling a bit of this and a bit of that, and you don't get the results. I used to want to speak Spanish 25 years ago, I think it was. I started to try to train myself to speak Spanish, and I didn't follow through. So I don't know a word of Spanish now, or maybe know one or two words, but I started to do it, and then I wasn't consistent over it, and then I didn't do it day by day.
Gotcha.
But if I'd spent just 10 minutes a day for the last 25 years, I'd be fluent. Absolutely. Gotcha. 100%. My son's just doing it now. He's just learning. He's teaching himself. I'm really proud of him for this. Teaching himself to speak Japanese in his spare time.
Awesome.
But it's about doing, and he does a little bit every day. So he's got little programs. So you do a little bit every day, because that's another key to this is ordinary activities consistently performed will produce extraordinary results. Because doing that, building the consistency, is the thing that people are not doing.
Right. Okay. So just laying this out. So what we can see here, the system in its bruntness is consistency.
Yeah.
Micromanaging these systems, the intricate side of things, is there anything we can sort of take away and apply from these systems? Or is there little things that these guys can action moving forward in relation to the system?
I mean, I'll talk briefly about the system that I use.
Sure.
But it's based around my system. This isn't about me selling my system. This is about talking about principles. But just so that you understand what I do. So inside of this, we create a structure. So you've got a to-do list of all of the actions you need to do. But those are just one-off things. And so you create a nice structure for it. Create good lists. You've got 3D lists, I call them. So you've got a list of everything. Then you have a timed list, and then you have a contextual list. So we've got that. But then the big thing is the important things that are inside of our lives. Not the urgent things, but the important things. So your health, your finance, your relationships, all those things. And so what we do is we create a structure around 6 elements of your life. And this can be anything if you're using my system, because it's all configurable to you.
Sure.
So the 6 elements that I look at are health, finance, relationships, emotions, personal development, and life management.
Sure.
So we have 3 levels. We have those categories. Then you have subcategories, and then underneath your subcategories, you've got actions. Yeah. So the actions that you do on a daily basis to make sure that you're at your best. So the questions I ask when I'm putting those into my system are, I'm at my best when, ... Well, I'm at my best when I drink 8 glasses of water a day, when I exercise every day, when I do cold calls in the morning, whatever it is for the different elements. So you create that structure, and then you build the consistency around those things. The beauty of this is that it's all about those basic things. So John Wooden, the basketball coach, would have his players, one of the best basketball coaches, most successful basketball coaches of all time, have his players doing free throw after free throw after free throw. Yeah, all the basics.
Yeah.
Not because they were going to have 1,000 of those in a match, but because when they got it, it was done.
It was ingrained.
There wasn't any thinking about it, they just did it. Chaos of the game going on around them, they just do it. Pressure, do it. And so then the basics are mastered. And it's the same with this. When you master those basics, when the chaos of your day occurs, which it will, because that's just life, you've got the basics down. And so you're in control.
So what are you saying? You're saying here we're tapping into our subconscious mind? Or unconscious mind?
Essentially, yes, because you're building these habits.
Just to automate the process so we can become a lot more efficient.
Yeah, right. Because if you don't, and if you've got to think about everything all the time, then that's effort. And it's energy drain, going back to the first point. Yeah. So you build the habits around those things. And it's not just habits, it's habits and rituals. Because habits kind of imply that you just do it without thinking. Which isn't necessarily the real structure, but that's the implication. But creating rituals is another thing.
It's quite interesting you say this, because it's very it's identical to what we do in our mastermind, is that we underpin these destructive habits and we remove them. And then we create new habits, rituals and routines and systems that enable them to build this car for them to enter the race. So that can actually stay in the race. Because we see a lot of guys, they fall off the path, stop and start. So this is what we bring them into. It's quite interesting how they link together here, and understanding that whole productivity is about consistency and efficiency. How we build the snowball until it's completely huge, where we're just automated and efficient and just productive. Super. I see. Yeah. Fantastic. Awesome. Brilliant. Excellent. I think we've got some serious amount of value here in the 3 that we've covered. We've got a lot of questions coming through. I think it probably makes sense to answer some of them right now. Okay, cool. So, first question we've got here from Darren is, do you think I should track my blood glucose levels as well, James? Yeah, so that's a separate thing, Darren. 100% we can bring that in. I don't think it's absolutely essential right now for you every single day. What we can do is bring in one reading in a prandial state, just to sort of manage that moving forward and look at that. It's going to be useful data for sure. So that's a quick answer to that one. Ralph's saying here, I was thinking the same as Darren. Do you have any tips to help with stopping multitasking, i.e. focusing the mind? Do you have any tips regarding that, Carl?
It's back to distraction management. You know, time management is distraction management. So it's eliminating as much as you possibly can. So when get yourself focused, get yourself into your room, focused on what you're doing, and shut everything else out. So get your phone. I mean, if your phone's going to buzz, move it out of the room. Switch down email, whatever it is. Just get rid of everything that you possibly can and get focused.
Aren't there apps that you can install to have on your desktop or your phone that show you basically how much time you're spending on certain things on your email, on your? Isn't there an app called? Is it Tracker? Is it called? I'm not too sure.
I'm not sure. I mean, you may well be right. Yeah, it isn't something that I use, but yeah, I'm sure that there are. I mean, I know people who do this, tracking what you do on a daily basis, like your time in 15-minute blocks. 15 minutes is about 1% of your day.
Sure.
So that's a great idea to do that for a few days, just so that you can see where your time's going. But in terms of getting yourself focused, I think it's about just eliminating these other distractions and just really getting down and doing it, and just remembering. Sometimes it's just about awareness as well. Remembering that there's a great quote I got from a guy called Keith Cunningham, and it says, "Get in line, stay in line." And this idea is that, like, you know, it's like a cafeteria line. You get the back of the cafeteria line, and you know, you stand there waiting, you get bored, and you see something, you get the shiny penny, and you jump out of the line, you go have a play with it, and then you realise you're still hungry, so you got to get back in the line, and the line hasn't moved much, and so you're at the back now, and then you see another one, and then you see another one, and you never end up eating. For
sure. Great points. Thank you. We've got Will who's come in and said he's got a Focus app. Focus app is a good one for this. That's what he's labelled there. An interesting one. I haven't heard of that before. But great suggestion. We've got a couple of questions from Darren coming in here as well. It's just asking, would you recommend any books or podcasts at all in relation to productivity? I know we mentioned
absolutely,
about
100%.
Yes, fantastic. What is the book? Making shit happen. There you go, Darren.
Making shit happen.
Fantastic.
I would actually. I mean, you can see this is all sort of used, and this is my book, because I read it all the time myself.
Fantastic.
Awesome. There are some. It's a very practical based book as well. So yes, thank you for the question.
Well, there you go. Nice little pitch in there for you. Great. Darren's got another question here. Great advice on focus. I agree. It's so important to concentrate on one thing at a time. I need to adopt this more. I think it's we're also guilty of it. We just get into the sort of habit of just waking up and going with the flow, as opposed to actually controlling the frame for the day.
Oh, that is critical. That first part of your day, your morning, is the most important time.
Gotcha.
Most important time, and having morning rituals that you go through that get you going before you. So not including answering emails, because emails are going to get put you on somebody else's time frame.
Gotcha.
So don't do that, but get yourself going in the morning rituals. And a real interesting one here. Sorry, James, I know you're going to say something.
No, it's a great point. It's a great point. Go on. You go.
Is when do you start your day?
Yeah.
And you don't start it in the morning. Start your day the night before.
Gotcha.
Start your day the night before. So what you want to be doing is get your body ready, get your mind ready, get your environment ready.
Yes.
And if you can do that, then when you wake up, which is great, all this talk about morning rituals. Lots of people talk about morning rituals. Yeah. And they're fantastic, and you should do morning rituals. The problem with morning rituals, if you've not got yourself ready the night before, is that when you wake up in the morning, you don't feel like getting out of bed, and you don't feel like doing the things. You walk into your office and everything's a mess. Yeah. You don't feel like you're already distracted.
Yes. That's a really good point, because we've seen, and some of the guys will happily say this, that they've struggled with a bit of lag and overwhelm in their days because of this, because they're not audited and blocked up ready to control their frame. So it's an interesting one you say about that. Actually, it starts the night before.
Always start your day the night before.
I like that. That's a big revelation to take away from this. I like that. we have a lot of morning routines for our guys. They all have individual morning routines. They do that and then they're off. What their morning routine looks like for us is they wake up each morning, they clear their bowels, they get a fasted body weight measurement, they log that into the app and also their spreadsheet, and then they conclude with some affirmations just to reaffirm who they're becoming and where they're going. I'd love to know a little bit more about what morning routine you'd suggest and what you do.
I would guess some similar stuff to what you talk about.
Yeah.
So drinking water first thing in the morning, exercising first thing in the morning. I've exercised every day now and there may be some downsides to this, but one of which is sort of an OCD element to it. But I haven't missed a day in something like nearly 6 years. So in May it'll be 6 years, and so doing that first thing in the morning is really important to me. Getting some stretching done for me, because sometimes, I mean, I'm 50 years old now, so my body isn't quite what it was when I was 30 years old. But, you know, getting some stretching done, and then if you can also add to that, so doing the physical things that are important to you, but in terms of your business, then setting a 90-minute period when you just focus on one thing inside of your business before you touch anything else. Before you open emails, before you look at Facebook, if you can do that, then you're really on a great roll. Gotcha. Particularly if you set it up the night before and you know what you're going to be doing.
Gotcha. Perfect. I think that's a great point. I love that. Dan's got another question here from sort of podcasts. Are there any podcasts these guys can go and jump onto? Have you got a podcast yourself?
We haven't got podcasts at the moment. It's something we're working on doing. But we haven't got one at the moment. Any podcasts on productivity? I'm not sure 100%. I don't listen to any, but I mean, if David Allen does one, I don't know if he does. David Allen's a great guy.
Fantastic.
I don't know if he has a podcast, but I'm sure there are lots of things out there.
Gotcha.
I know Rob Moore does podcasts, doesn't he? And some of the stuff that he talks about certainly involves productivity.
Gotcha. Fantastic. Awesome. We've got another question here. Rav saying, I find I live my life by to-do lists, which never get finished. Can you recommend anything different, or is it a case of prioritizing this list?
It's very much about prioritizing. I mean, I think we get hung up on not getting our list done. But I mean, we just need to get our heads away from that and know that we're going to die with a big, long to-do list. It's going to happen. And that's not supposed to be negative. That's just saying, you know, this is where we are. You know, it's a dynamic world. It's things that we want to be making happen inside of a business, inside of our families. There's lots of stuff that we want to be doing, but it is about prioritizing, and it's about doing that. So taking that list of things. If you've got a list of 100 things and you keep looking at that every day, you're going to get frustrated for sure. Gotcha. So the best thing to do is have that list, because you want all the stuff out of your head. Yeah. But then look at that, and as part of your 1 hour planning the other 23, the first thing you do is get the 3 things that you want to do.
Gotcha.
Then the one thing that you cannot afford not to do, and then the next action, and just focus on that and get those off your list. You don't have to do all 100 of them.
Fantastic. Rav's just come back to you and he says lol. So I think that answers that. One from me is that with our guys, they have a simple 5-box system. They tick their boxes, they win. It's purely science. So it largely comes down to their ability to adhere to the process and time blocking ahead of time and understanding their week ahead, so they know exactly where they're going to tick their boxes across the week. Would you have anything to add on to that and how they can optimize that? Would you say create a little 30-minute session on a Sunday where they get their head down and say, okay, this is where I'm going to tick my boxes on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They map the week out ahead from a time blocking perspective. What would you suggest in relation to what they do there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good idea to time block. Yeah, I mean, I think having a period when you look at your week ahead. So, like I say, doing an hour planning the other 23 hours, also just having a little bit of time to sort of get everything planned for the week, whether that's on a Monday morning or a Sunday night, whichever is best for you, because it's always going to be down to where your energy levels are and what you want to be doing.
So you think time blocking is absolutely essential but also time blocking past Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so you don't get that lag and churn come midweek. You know, we see that a lot, don't we? We see Monday and Tuesday out the blocks, and then Wednesday, Thursday, there's the lag and overwhelm because we haven't actually looked that far ahead as well. So would you say time blocking is essential before the week happens, the night before, like you say, with preparation as well? Just getting to that habit, relentless habit.
It's about setting meetings with yourself, isn't it? You know, if you set a meeting with if you set a meeting with your most important client,
yes,
you're going to do it.
yeah.
Well, your most important client is you.
Gotcha.
Because you're in your business every minute of the day.
Yeah.
So setting some time aside for you to be working on your business in that way is going to... How can that be a bad thing?
Fantastic. I think that's absolutely key. You are the most valuable piece on this chessboard that we're playing. You take you away, we're not servicing you or your business. So I think that's a great point. Set a meeting with yourself before the week commences, the night before as well. You're efficient moving forward. Bit of nice news for you. You've just made a sale. Darren's bought your book for you. So there you go.
Thank you, Darren.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm sure, no doubt, it will help him moving forward, which is great. Final one from me before we hop off here, Carl. What would be your number one biggest life hack for productivity that you would recommend to anyone?
It's got to be consistency. It's doing the small things, not looking for the magic bullets. You know, magic bullets don't exist. I found one magic bullet, and it's consistency, and it's not a bullet.
Gotcha. Long-term game.
I was doing it. It's the long game.
Yes.
Don't play the short game. You know, it's the long game that's important. And the long game, when you do the things consistently, that long game happens a lot faster than you'd imagine.
Gotcha. So you're actually arriving at that outcome goal in the most time-efficient manner. You're breaking it down into mini process goals every single day, and then you're gotcha. Fantastic.
The reason that it looks like it's so far out is because people aren't being consistent with it. They think they're being consistent, but they're not.
Gotcha.
So therefore, it takes a lot longer.
Fantastic. Awesome. I've really enjoyed the interview today. I know a lot of guys, we had so many questions, a lot of people tuning in. A sale's been made as well. It's been a great interview. I've really enjoyed it. It's been fantastic. Thank you very much for coming on board. Tell us, before they can hop off, where can they find a little bit more about you and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So if you go to, my email address is carl@productivitypowerhouse.com or carl@undercover-entrepreneur.com.
Gotcha.
So we've got the two businesses. And yeah, go check us out. We got websites, Productivity Powerhouse, dailylifetracker.com for the software, and undercover-entrepreneur.com for the new business.
Excellent. It's been awesome having you on, Carl. Really enjoyed it. Loads of knowledge bombs there to implement, and it sort of reaffirms what we're already doing as well, which is great. Fantastic. I'm sure Carl will hop on after this live is finished and answer a few of your questions in the comment section below, just to sort of answer any of that. I'm sure Carl won't mind doing that. That'd be fantastic. Guys, if you've got any further more questions for myself or Carl, drop them in the chat down below and we'll get back to you straight away. I really enjoyed this one. Drop us a like and any comments that you've got, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. Carl, we'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much for coming on board.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, James.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.